and welcome to episode 222 or 222 of Checkpoint Chat. My name is Alessandro Barbosa, and I'm joined by a very unimpressed Matty Figueroa.
I don't know how to follow that.
I just watched your face, and you're like, what is this guy doing? What is it? It's just f***ing this up completely. Easy. You're going to get demonetized on YouTube because I keep swearing in the first 30 seconds of the video.
It's fine. Well, actually, how does the demonetization work? Isn't it after the first 30 seconds or the first?
It's either the first 30 seconds or first minute. All I know is that when I watch or when I listen to the Giant Bomb podcast, Janet Cho hosts there is very particular about that in the intro. He's like, please don't swear in the first minute, otherwise YouTube's going to nail us on that, so.
we screwed. I'll have to bleep that out. It's cool.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Just put a little thing over my mouth so it's also not seen in the video, you know.
Oh my word, do you think they would mark that as well?
I actually don't know. I know that Linus Tech Tips do a podcast, or the WAN show, and they bleep all of their swearing throughout the entire show. And they manually do it. Like he's got a little button on his little Elgato or whatever. So he just preempts his own. I
need one of those.
His own potty mouth. And he's like, beep, beep, beep. Like, my God. Well, our podcast would sound like Morse code if that happened.
It would. So. We've got a 15-second grace period, though, because we do have an intro song, which fills up a little bit of that opening.
Yeah, I think I blew that wide open. It doesn't matter. Don't worry.
Impossible challenge. Please. Don't swear in the first minute of the podcast.
It's impossible. I mean, how satisfying is it to swear?
I mean,
it's just... even in my workplace, maybe it's just a startup thing or a software dev thing, but people just they just swear all the time.
I think it's a pretty common thing in the work. Look, within reason.
Like there's...
my workplace
within reason, yeah. Yeah, within reason. I'm not about to be in a meeting presenting work and being like, so this feature was fucked up. Like I'm not going to do that. That's dumb.
You're not going to walk into McDonald's and the person's going to be like, what would you like to fucking order?
I would like a fucking Big Mac. That's what.
A big fucking Mac.
Yeah. What size? Fucking huge.
Fucking super size.
I mean, if they ever rename the size, were you aware that they changed the sizes 2-3 years ago? Now?
Regular,
it was very
large.
Confusing for a long time because now large was actually extra large and medium was actually large.
Yeah.
And so you'd go there and be like, I want a medium, and you get this liter code. And you're like, what is happening?
I don't know why they did away with it, because it was it was normal. There's small, medium, large, extra large. All that is they just swapped out the medium for regular.
Yeah, so now it's small, regular, medium, large.
Yeah.
It's very confusing. Very, very confusing to me. But yeah, so now I think the new scale should just be fucking small, fucking not small, fucking huge.
Oh, there's a lot going on.
Hire me, McDonald's.
I don't know if they would.
And then the Happy Meal would just be a fucking Happy Meal.
Yeah,
get happy.
Any meal. Happy Meal. Love to see it.
Comes with 2 toys. If you just want a normal Happy Meal, it just comes with 1 toy.
Good Lord. Kids these days are going to be swearing.
Those toys are lame now. Maybe it's a rose-tinted glasses thing, but when I was a kid, those toys ruled.
Weren't they always lame? Now that we're adults, we're like, oof.
I feel like when we were smaller, or when I was a kid at least, they used to do more. They used to be more interactive. They used to have more functions. Now it's just this is a plastic car and that's it. It's
weren't there also more partnerships? It feels like if there was, I don't know, a Disney movie happening or some kids movie happening, there would always be toys linking to the franchise. I think it still happens. I don't know how often it happens.
There's a lot more Nintendo stuff lately. I'm surprised there wasn't one for the movie though. Or maybe I just haven't noticed it because I just don't go to McDonald's as much anymore. But I would go there and get a little Mario toy with a little meal. That'd be sick. Yeah.
But then I
remember back in the day, Steers, because a lot of these the fast food places, they've moved away from toys for some reason. I think it's only McDonald's and probably KFC that still do it. But Steers used to do it, Nando's used to do it, anyway, Steers one time they had this whole range of toys. This was ages ago. I must have been like 8 or 7.
Spring chicken.
And they were like sort of like before the movie came out, they had brought out these toys that were sort of like Transformers, but they were insects. So they were just regular like insects when they were in regular form, and then you could like, and then it's like a little robot.
Ooh.
And that's pretty cool. Like you don't get that anymore. Like you pay 200 Rand for that now in the shops. So
what's going on?
Lame.
Yeah.
I remember the great rush of what were those toys called? Mighty Beans, Crazy Beans.
Mighty Beans.
Yeah, they were these little they were like these pill-shaped beans that had like a ball bearing in them.
Yeah.
And you'd flick them and they'd just like
yes,
roll.
No, I do remember.
And then you put them on tracks and they would just like do nuts.
Forever.
And then I remember Nando's at a point was like, oh, we have 5 exclusive ones that you can only get at Nando's. And was like, oh my God, got to go get Nando's.
That
but then you have to eat
marketing
their dry-ass
Nando's.
chicken burger at the time because Nando's sucked back then. But you got a Mighty Bean, you got this little plastic thing with a ball bearing that was painted like
shit
this.
on the playground.
You come to school with these fucking
Alessandro
beans.
has
They
the
were
5
great.
exclusive Nando's ones. He's so cool.
The Nando's beans.
Yeah, what a time to be
Being a kid
alive.
was fun. Being a kid was fun.
It is.
You got so excited about stupid shit, but it was fun.
It is amazing watching, like being an adult and watching how kids are, because we were the same when we were little. So I went to the zoo with my brother, sister-in-law, and their kids. When is it? On Thursday, the public holiday. And my brother went to buy an ice cream for them, and he was holding his youngest. And he gave him his ice cream packet. He was so excited to eat it, he started licking the packet.
Oh my goodness.
And Lenska and I are just laughing, shaking our heads like, no, why are you doing this?
I mean, depending on the ice cream, same.
Yeah.
I would do the same thing. Yeah.
It's true. As an adult, I do the same. And
Yeah,
I pass
I'm
it to
just so-
Lenska and I
get so
say, please
excited.
open it for me.
It's all wet now. I can't grab it.
Yeah, but kids are funny.
Kids get so excited. I do think being a kid now, though, I don't know if it's harder. Maybe hard is the wrong word, but I feel like we had it simpler. Like we were just discovering things like the internet. So when a kid rocked up to school, I remember at least, he would have found like 10 pictures of Dragon Ball Z on Google image search and printed out. And people like, holy shit, what is that? What is that? That is insane. And he's like, I'll sell it to you for 20 Rand.
Oh
And
my
you're like,
gosh.
oh my God, yes.
Those kids
it's just an
hustling.
A4 piece of paper that's not even like color printing, because who had color printing then? Like
Yeah, but that's
hey,
part
it
of
was-
the appeal. Then you get to color it in.
Super Saiyan Goku level 4, and you're like, oh my, that's never
Wow.
been on SABC2 shit. Like,
This
Yeah.
is the same kid who grew up and went to Nando's and said, listen, if we have exclusive beans, I know this industry inside out.
nowadays kids are just like, yo, do you have the latest skin on Fortnite, or have you played this game on Roblox?
It's actually quite scary because, I mean, so my one colleague, John Michael, he's got a bunch of nieces and nephews, and they, I mean, I've known him for a couple of years now, so I've heard stories about them from the youngest being like 4 at the time to 10, whatever. So they are that demographic.
Hectic. Okay.
And it's funny because a legit insult at school now is calling somebody a default.
Because they play with the default skin.
Yeah, well, because they
Wow.
can't afford to buy any other skin.
You got that default dance in
So
Fortnite.
I laugh because I'm like, as an adult, you just think that is the most ridiculous insult. But can you imagine being a kid begging your parents to buy you a skin? They're like, no, I'm not putting money into this game. It's
But
cosmetic.
mom, I don't want to be a default.
I want to be a default. Yeah, but that's a legit insult.
Wow. Yeah, but this is what I mean. It's harder nowadays. It's
So
just like,
next time your manager pisses you off, just turn to them and say, don't be such a default. Oh my God.
then I'll be looking for a new job.
The default will be their response.
You know, it's default. Your salary again.
Oh, wow. My goodness. Yeah, it's,
Oh, hello.
I think it is, it's, I don't know, like I suppose there's an argument to be made whether it's more difficult for kids these days, but I think through history, every time there's some or other tech thing happening and parents go, ooh, like,
Yeah.
we never
yeah.
grew up with this. Kids have it so hard these days. I mean, think about TV. I remember being
Yeah.
a kid and I couldn't sit too close, couldn't watch too long because, we get square
bad
eyes,
for your brain.
it's bad for your eyes, all of that. And now it's like we have screens literally everywhere.
Or even just I mean, we were ripe in that era of video games becoming a very prominent thing in household.
Yeah.
I mean, they were big beforehand with the Nintendo and whatever, but you know, like, how many times would you go to a friend's house and then be like, oh, my mom says I can only play an hour of PlayStation, or like, oh, I don't own a PlayStation because my parents think video games
Let
are
me
bad.
ask
It
you
was
this. You, I don't know if this is a Portuguese thing, but were you allowed to play games whenever you wanted or only certain times?
So maybe my answer is different because I never owned a console.
You never owned a console. Yes.
I got my first console when I was only like 12 or 11, round about then, and I never had a PlayStation 1 or 2, whatever. But when I got it, I was allowed to play as much as I wanted.
The dream.
as long as my work was done. Like, my parents are very adamant. They're like, this is a trust thing. You do your homework, you do this, you keep doing well in school. There's no limitation.
I know. My parents were weekends only and holidays. Absolutely.
Oh, I knew some friends like that.
Zero game time during the week, and man, that was the worst.
I had a friend who could only play during school holidays. So if the term was in, that's it. Yeah. So like when holidays kicked in, you just did not see that kid.
That's horrific.
Like,
Jeez.
Yeah, no, it's a hardcore, very, very hard. Listen, I don't think there's a bad route to that. I think every parent did the best with what they could, but I knew a lot of people who had a similar deal to me, but just took advantage of it. So it's like it could have gone both ways. Yeah, I don't know. Weekends and holidays sounds fine.
I think, look, as a kid, you just think, oh my God, this is the worst. But
as a
an
kid,
adult,
because you're comparing it to other kids, you're like, but he can play on Mondays.
Yeah. But thinking about it, I'm like, it's not that bad. I mean,
nah, it's not that bad. It's not. I mean, as an adult, that's mostly when I play my video games now. Anyway, during the week is just not even an option anymore. So, like
weekends and holidays.
Jeez, during the week is like a chore nowadays. It's just So
I'm hitting. I don't know if I'm getting old or it's just a current stage in my life where I climb into bed. I'm like, oh wow, it's load shedding. It's 10 o'clock. I can play Switch for like 2 hours and sleep. Man, half an hour later, my eyes are so heavy. I'm like, oh, I can't.
Oh, dude,
I just can't do this.
It's like a gamble now. I either choose. It's like, do I play an hour of video games, or do I watch an hour of TV, or do I read for an hour? Like that. I just have an hour. Like that's it. So yeah, it's a bummer. You know what else? Well, you know what doesn't have an hour to develop? I don't know.
Tell me, I'm dying to hear this thing. You started off so confident. You're like, you know what else? I
tried
something video games.
After 222 times, the segue is getting harder and harder. Video games. We play them here on Checkpoint Chat. Here we talk about video games. Bunch of stuff I want to touch on very, very quickly before we get to new stuff and meatier stuff. I finished Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Nice.
Damn, turns out game is really good. Also turns out the castle is the weakest part of that game. Sue me. Can
we just agree that the village itself is the strongest part?
100%.
Yeah.
That's not even up for debate. The village is like that. What it's about 5 hours you spend in the village. Like it is.
I think it's
top to
like
bottom
5 hours
a
pop per section. So it's 5 hours.
That
village,
feels about right
because
because my overall completion time was about 16 hours
16,
or so. Yeah. So that sounds about right. The castle's not bad. The castle reminds me the most of RE2, which is interesting. It is more of the sort of Metroidvania-y style of design where you're able to go back right to the beginning of the castle and whatever. But I just feel it's not as well thought out and designed. You're doing loads of backtracking to go find treasures that you might want to get after the fact, and a lot of them you can only get after the fact because you like need Ashley or you need a certain tool or whatever. So a lot of the stuff I just didn't go back and get because I just found it very boring.
Although that, wasn't it nice going back to find something then enemies had spawned?
That's true. That's
I
fair.
remember walking back to like the one. Not a throne room. It's one of the main hallways into the castle. Backtracking there, going, "Wow, there's a treasure," and then just like 10 dudes turning around and be like, hey,
Rip.
what's up? I'm like, oh, okay.
Now that sort of thing it's cool because it keeps you on edge all the time, and there's like a risk reward to like going and finding treasures because like, do you want to waste all your ammo? And I did get irritated at there was one part where, so there's that section, maybe this is a spoiler, but there's a section where you play as Ashley.
Block your ears.
It's very, very good. Also, there's a trophy there for like getting through that section without ever using your lantern. And I was like, how? Okay.
Just never use it.
Cool. Enjoy that. Yeah, that's another thing. The platinum for this game is absurd, I think. But anyway,
I'm still dancing with the idea of getting it, but
no, fuck that. I read like 3 or 4 trophies, and I was like, no, that does not sound fun at all. So anyway, there's a moment where you get to a part where a bunch of these knights are following you, and they hit light, and they all freeze, and you get to like crawl underneath them and escape. There's a treasure in that room behind you. And when you're back to being Leon, you cannot go there. It's impossible. They block that entrance, and it's like,
so how do you actually get that treasure? I also remember that.
And I have this funny feeling that treasure is a key that's required for a chest elsewhere that is always locked under a specific key, and I could never find that key. So I was just like real bummed about that. But anyway, those are very small like nitpicks on what's otherwise I think a pretty phenomenal game. I think the bosses are really, really good. Like when I finished it, especially that final boss battle, my mind immediately went back to the Dead Space remake I played earlier this year. And I recall that boss, that final boss in Dead Space being terrible as it was when it first came out. And I just felt like this I had never played the original, so I don't know how this one compares to the original. But this boss, if it was an old design that was revamped for today, feels so good. Yeah. Like it's multi-staged, it's dynamic, you move around a lot, you have to think a lot. Whereas in the Dead Space one, you're in a like 4x4 square where you're just strafing left and right, avoiding stuff and shooting little glowy bits on an enemy. So like this one felt like a much more evolved version of that. And I appreciated a lot of the work that went into making this feel very modern. And that's why it's like one of the best games I played this year.
Do you have,
without a doubt,
any desire to replay it at all?
Yes, I do. I have less desire to replay this one like immediately as opposed to like 3 or 2, just because of its length. It is. But this one is easily about twice as long as RE2.
It's very long,
and it's 4 times as long as RE3. So
yeah, but the reason I ask is because I had the same gut reaction of, oh my god, I know I've just rolled credits and I've got other stuff to play, but shit, I'd love to replay this. And I think that to me is just testament to how good the game feels. It just, I think part of why Resident Evil 4 is so beloved as one of the best action games, apart from, the fact that it sort of defined third-person shooters as they are today, it's just that it's so satisfying. It never gets old walking into a room going, oh, there's 4 enemies, I'll shoot this dude in the head and then roundhouse kick him. It feels so good. It feels like so weighty and chunky, and even like the weapons themselves, they sound good, they feel good, they've got impact. So just for those reasons, I'm immediately, I had the same sort of feeling I had when I finished Elden Ring, weirdly enough, where I'm immediately like, oh man, I can't wait to replay this game using a different build. I'm thinking RE4, man, maybe I should replay it on a harder difficulty with my same stuff. Or let me try some weapons that I kind of ignored through my first playthrough.
I wanted to ask you, did you originally play on hardcore or did you play on normal?
No, I played on normal.
Okay, because when I went back, because I like opened up, I wanted to see what professional was. And when I looked at the description for normal, it says for people new to RE4, and then hardcore was like for Resident Evil fans. And I was like, oh, maybe I should have played that one. But I found parts in normal quite difficult.
Quite still. I draw the line. So it's only because I'm captain. I like playing games on hardcore mode. But Resident Evil, the franchise as a whole, I kind of draw the line because I want a fair balance of, I'll play it again on a harder difficulty, but I'll never start on the hardest difficulty. I'd like to get a feel for the game before I tackle. And I thought normal was, I died a couple times.
It was challenging. Yeah. There were moments, there are definitely moments there where I was like, I feel like a fucking god, and especially near the end when I had like a fully upgraded pistol and a fully upgraded shotgun, I was like, I am chewing through these people. But then you come up on like an encounter and you suddenly have no ammo.
Yeah.
A good example was in the lab with those fucking regenerating assholes.
I hate those.
They are that one room where there's like 5 of them. It's insane. I hate it. Yeah.
But can we appreciate the good design in that they're trying to force you to be very thoughtful with where you're shooting? Because the first time I walked in that room, I'm like, oh, this one's got the whatever item you're looking for at the time. Shoot it. I'm like, okay, let me fight it. Oh, there's a oh shit, there's a third one now.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I was just shooting like willy-nilly. That's my fault.
I ended up still going for all 4 because I really wanted all the gems. So I was like, I'm doing this. I refuse. But the whole like idea of using the scope to figure out where to shoot them, and then like I would run out of ammo on the submachine gun, so I'd be like, shit, okay, use the scope, see where to shoot them, switch to pistol, shoot. I'm like, am I missing this? What is happening? Like, why is he not dying? Like, it's it's like so much cool design like that. Like every little new chapter evolves the formula somewhat. Even if like at the beginning your hardest enemy is like an enemy that has those little tendril things that sprout out of its head, and at the end of the game you're still getting those enemies, but when they're peppered in with, you know, the regenerating ones, or the zombies now that have body armor, or the zombies that have metal shields, like it just evolves the same formula and keeps using those parts to its advantage, and it's just really good. The combat loop there is like one of the best, if not the best, you'll find in a game like that. It's phenomenal. And I do recall there was a lot of hesitation, you know, especially when RE3 Remake came out. They're like, they're moving on to 4. This is a bad idea. This game is pretty much perfect. They are going to sully it by like trying to improve on a perfect form, and I think they did.
Look, like on Reddit, I've seen people going, "Oh no, the remake is worse than the original." Blah blah. And I suppose you can make cases for both, because I'm sure there are things from the original that you go, "Oh, I missed that." I mean, I haven't played the original.
I mean, the same thing was said of RE3 though.
No, but like, RE3, I still love the hell out of that game.
I do too.
But the fact that they cut out like an entire
section, tower,
it's a bit, man, like, why did you do that? It's such an iconic place. Whereas RE4 it feels like the game that actually changed the least out of all of them, if that makes sense. Because RE2 Remake and 3 Remake were like brand new, over the shoulder. It's still the same police station and Raccoon City, but from a whole new perspective. RE4 Remake, it's like, no, the perspective's the same. They've removed some areas, added some new areas, but the raw gameplay loop is pretty identical.
The thing is, from what I understand, the loop is the same, but the overall layout and structure of the game is actually quite heavily changed.
Yeah, so I can't speak to that because I mean, it's been a long time since I've played the original.
Yeah.
I want to pick it up on Switch.
What I like is that
stage.
there is this version here, because like I've tried to play the original, and very recently I picked it up again because there was that HD texture rework on PC that makes it look really good. Like, but the control scheme in a modern context is awful. It is so difficult to get into now, unless you have the muscle memory of, I've played this game multiple times over the years, so you know I can play it again.
Yeah.
I think expecting someone to pick up RE4 now after playing the remake and play through it to compare is like stupid. Like, they will not do that. They will. I mean, to be fair, Darren did that. He tried to play RE4 a few months back, and he was like, "This feels awful to play now." And I'm like, "Yeah, it does." So I don't know. I'm glad that Remake exists for that reason, because someone like him can play Remake 4 now and get 95% of what made the original great, with the added benefit of it being modern. Yeah,
I'm grateful for Remake, and I'm very curious to know what they do next.
Will they do 5? Oh my god!
Listen, 5 gets a bad rap, but I have such a soft spot for it because co-op.
Me too. Listen, 5 is a fun co-op game. 5 is not a good Resident Evil game. Like, 5 is not. They are, 2, 3, and 4 are good games. They were good games as base RE. 5 is where RE started getting strange, and like people were like,
"What's going on?
What's Capcom doing here?" Yeah, let's ignore the story and the problematic issues that it has within a modern context now as well. But just from a gameplay perspective, it's not there. Like they would have to change so much about that game.
But will they? I have a feeling they might at some stage address it.
I think the play, and you've mentioned it before, is, even though they've done it before, a remake of 1.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking
I would love
in
that.
like 5-10 years when they've like, okay, we've remade all of them.
A remake of 1. Okay, this is coming from someone who, I played 1 for the very first time last year, and I think that game is completely playable today with its control scheme, and it's phenomenal.
It's really good.
It's up there as like, I think only Remake 2 comes in higher for me in Resident Evils than 1. But man, that from an over-the-top perspective in a spooky mansion,
It'd be so good.
I will be in there day one.
Yeah,
it will be
same.
great.
I'm ready.
Resident Evil, good. By RE4, it is probably going to be
good.
easily be in my top 5 for the year.
Yeah.
Like that and Hi-Fi Rush are a lock for like my top 5 this year. Like no doubt.
Yeah.
Another game we've both kind of like touched on somewhat. After a year and a bit delay due to actual war, we finally have Advanced Wars. What is the full title of this? Advanced Wars 1+2 Rearmed?
Reboot Camp.
Reboot Camp, that's the one.
That is the one.
So I've never played Advanced Wars before this on the GBA and whatever. I've always known of its existence and always known that so many games are inspired by it. Great games like Into the Breach, heavily inspired by it. Most tile-based games, Advanced Wars kind of like inspired. So it's very cool to play the progenitor of those sorts of games. And interesting to see that the game is very... I'm not going to say basic. It's basic in terms of the numbers it uses. Like every unit starts at like 10. They do X amounts of damage. And you know that, hey, okay, if they're in this vehicle, they'll do this amount of damage. If they're on a mountain, they will do this amount of damage. Or they will receive this amount of damage.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. But then it starts getting very complex very quickly with the amount of units you have available, the sort of rock, paper, scissors you're playing with air units versus ground units versus sea units versus units in a building versus units in a mountain versus this versus that. And it's a really deep strategy game that I'm quite enjoying. What's your take on this?
Yeah, no, I feel the same. When it starts, I was a bit taken aback because I always thought Advance Wars was a DS game, but that actually existed on the Game Boy Advance.
Way before, way before.
And I had the same reaction you did of, oh, okay, it's weird that in sets of infantry people have 10 health and so does a tank. Because in my head, strategy games are, I don't know, an infantry unit is 3 health, a tank's like 20 health. You know what I mean? But you start to realize how the depth comes in with, like you mentioned, different terrains, how you choose to attack your enemies. Almost, it is kind of like a rock, paper, scissors thing of, a tank is definitely going to destroy a light vehicle. A light vehicle is going to destroy infantry. However, infantry with rocket launchers can take on tanks. If you want to boil it down as like a dumb example like that. But they very quickly start introducing more depth. Like I said to you before we started recording, because I think I'm about 4 or 5 hours in already, you eventually get air units and then later you get sea units. So now, I mean, I'm still early in the campaign, but I imagine when you start bringing them all together, it's going to be, okay, how do I balance, dominating sea versus keeping an eye on the sky and making sure I don't give up too much territory on land? How do I bring all these units together in the most effective way possible? I mean, and even over and above that, I don't know how far you're on the campaign, but do you know what buildings do? Because when you start the campaign, they're like, this is how you capture a building, and they don't tell you what purpose it really serves other than, if your tank's injured, you can park it at the building, it'll heal.
Yeah. Isn't
turn.
it also like an attrition thing? Like the more buildings you have, like I know some missions like capturing certain buildings or certain bases are actually like a victory condition.
That's, yes. I did a level yesterday. It was like whoever captures 12 buildings first wins.
Exactly.
But you get some levels where the number of buildings you own dictates the amount of currency you earn every turn. And then eventually get buildings that let you train units per turn. So
do you get more units onto the battlefield?
Yeah. So
wow, that's almost like an RTS then.
So I mean, and that's very. It's not every level is like that, because when they introduced it, I thought, oh, okay, I guess I'm training units every level from now on, and it's not that. There are still. It's a fair mix of, here's a level where, like I said earlier, you need to capture 12 buildings, and you can train units to obviously keep feeding this back and forth balance between you and the enemy, versus a level where it's like, okay, we need you to like either destroy the enemy units or capture the HQ, and you've got 15 units to do that with versus their 15 units. Like, be strategic about it. So it's a very cool mix. And then, sorry, just looking at the video footage now, over and above that, you have what's called a CO, a commanding officer, who every couple turns they get to use a special ability, which itself can also change the flow of battle in interesting ways. So Andy, the first tier you get, I think his ability is he heals units across the map for 2 HP, and then they get a little bit of extra firepower. There's another guy you get who, I think he basically ramps up the firepower your tanks do. So like there's a lot. It's funny because I know, talking about it, if you're listening, you know nothing about Advanced Wars, you go, oh my God, that is so much to keep track of.
Yeah.
But it's weird because it's a Nintendo game. They make it very palatable. Like, no doubt there's a lot of depth, but the way the campaign is structured, it really spoon feeds you things like in a simple fashion that before you know it, you are doing all these things and you become aware of, oh, I know how to engage, you know, a group of tanks versus infantry, etc., etc. And it's really, really addictive. Like, there's a reason I've put 5 hours in like the last 2 days. I've had things where, I think
they do a great job of like onboarding you. I've seen some people who've played Advanced Wars before be a bit like irritated by it because there's no way to actually skip it. So if you've like played Advanced Wars before, the tutorial feels very extended and there's no way of avoiding it. But if you're coming in fresh, there's like lots to do.
But even on that, I can speak to the fact that they have streamlined some things. I think the first 3 like tutorial missions are unskippable. Like, I get that. But you do get to later missions where, like I said, they introduce air units and you go, oh my God, like air units. And the pop-up is, hey, do you remember how to use air units? You can say yes or no. So assuming if you say
that's cool.
Yes, they go like, okay, cool, like do the mission.
So it's weird that they let you skip that, but they don't let you like skip the basics of here's how to move a unit. Either way, I get the sense that Advanced Wars 2 is actually a significantly more fun game than the first one. But I've definitely started with the first one because I just kind of want to see, you know, what that's about. And the first one's like 20 hours or so. So
I'm already 27% through the campaign. So that checks out, I guess. If you're looking at 5 hours it took me to get there.
It's really fun, and like you said, palatable is I think a good descriptor, because it's like you play a level or 2 a night. They don't last super long. Well, they don't take like an hour each, you know what I mean? Whereas, you know, if you're coming from something like Fire Emblem, those battles can last quite some time. And there's a lot less jeopardy in Advanced Wars. It's like the mission, either you victory or fail. You know, there's no like units progressing through one or the other that you have to keep track of. So it is a very focused, like, this is turn-based strategy. This is what you're doing. And I think it's good. I think the only negative I have is I really don't like the visual style. I think
you ruined it for me.
Not good. The character portraits that come up when people are talking and during like the cutscenes, like that animated style.
I like that.
Really cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. But like the polygonal style that they've taken here, because obviously the original is more pixels or sprite art. Sorry. This one just looks like I'm sorry, it's like a cheap mobile game. It looks terrible. It really, really does.
When you mentioned that in the Discord, I read, I was like, how dare you? And then I was like, how dare you? Because now I can't unsee it.
I'm very sorry.
Yeah, it does.
When they show that like side by side for the battles, I'm like, this looks like an Instagram ad for a like mobile army
it feels
game. Like it just looks so terrible.
Yeah, like I've never played the original, but it feels like more could have been done on that front.
Yeah. I can't compare it as in terms of like, did they maintain the visual style? But from what I've heard other people talk about it, everyone's kind of like they should have stuck to sprites because this kind of doesn't look that great. And I tend to agree. It looks cheap, which you shouldn't be saying about a full price Switch game, especially one, for a beloved like a franchise like this. So that's a bummer. But other than that, the gameplay, like, it's very easy to overlook because it's just super fun to play. Yeah. So, and perfectly, again, suited for the Switch. So, yeah.
It's definitely going to keep me busy for the next 2 weeks before Tears of the Fallen Kingdom. I need to wrap it up. Also,
Tears of the Fallen Kingdom is 2 weeks away. Jesus,
it's crazy. But yeah, Advance Wars,
the OLED Switch is already out. People have it in their hands.
It's gorgeous. But yeah,
my God,
Advance Wars.
Can't wait.
It's funny because like I said, I always thought it was a DS game. I remember seeing it on the DS. I remember looking up reviews and people going, "Wow, Advance Wars really good." Never played it, so it's cool that I finally have had the opportunity to see why people say this is one of Nintendo's like most underrated franchises.
Yeah. And people are so happy that it's back. I know Darren, for example, super man, Darren really loves his turn-based games. I never really pictured it for him when I first met him, but over the years, as I've got to know him, like loves Fire Emblem, loves Advanced Wars.
The dude's got a Final Fantasy VIII tattoo on his
loves Final Fantasy Tactics, and he's fucking good at these games. Like, yeah,
it's good.
Whenever I mention I'm having trouble in Fire Emblem, he's just like, for shame.
You say, Darren Sensei, teach me.
Yeah, senpai, please. That's Advance Wars. I definitely will be playing more of that as the weeks go on, but I think that's a fairly robust look at how the game works. And if you've been eagerly waiting, barring the art, it's a really good game, I think. So, yeah.
Cool.
I can't remember. There was one
Horizon.
That's the one. Okay, so you've finished Horizon. I haven't touched the DLC anymore because I've just been busy. But you have navigated the Los Angeles waters of Horizon. What's it called? Burning Shores.
Burning Shores. Yeah. So
okay, cool.
Just to recap, because I know we spoke about it. I mean, we both had played like an hour or two. Last time we spoke about it, very, very brief. But just to recap very briefly, Burning Shores is a DLC for Horizon Forbidden West, and it picks up after the events of the first game. This isn't a DLC that you can just dive into.
You have to finish the main game.
You have to have finished the main game.
Yeah.
You have to be pretty high level to navigate all the dangers of a futuristic Los Angeles. Burning Shores takes you to Hollywood, what it might look like in 1,000 years. Turns out a lot of
cool.
Turns out
it looks a lot better than what it looks like now.
It does. It's got volcanoes. A lot of it's underwater.
It doesn't smell.
I don't know. Is that sewage water or the ocean? We don't know.
Listen, it's an improvement either way.
But yeah, so this takes place in a futuristic Los Angeles. But I think what makes this DLC stand out to the base game immediately is that there's a lot more water, and it's also a lot not more gorgeous, but I feel that because this is a PS5 only DLC, also just keep that in mind. If you have a PS4, you cannot play this.
Kind of a weird one. Yeah.
Like Horizon Forbidden West is gorgeous, but it feels that, I don't know, in terms of design and how this play areas come together, it's also like a visual marvel. Because there's so many different islands, you get to sail between them with a skiff, like a little makeshift boat, and there's a lot of little hills that give you cool views of the surrounding play areas. In terms of gameplay, I can't tell you that there's a distinct difference in how this game works. Like I know I touched on it last time where Horizon Zero Dawn's DLC, I find it hilarious that you get this high level gear that you finish the game with, and then you get into the DLC and they say, oh, there are these towers peppered throughout that for all intents and purposes, disable your high level gear. And that immediately is like, okay, I need to think strategically again. Horizon's Burning Shores DLC feels more, it's more just a side story set in the main game. And like there are one or two things that you might, I'd say, are going to probably be very important to know going into the third game. But if it's really is just more of the same, it's not like there's a distinct, oh wow, I must play this for X reason. You know, there's a new weapon that comes to mind. There's what are these? The Zenith, the futuristic people. You get one of their weapons, which is pretty cool. And there's a couple of new enemies, new armor sets, but there's no like distinct gameplay difference that comes to mind. The only thing all that said, I know I'm like getting ahead of myself here. Not to say that the DLC is bad. Like I really enjoyed my time with it. But the end boss in this DLC is what has me excited for, the third game in this to-be trilogy. Because that I feel when this was announced as a PS5 only thing, you go, that's weird. Like the reasoning was, no, now we can do like better particles, and now we have a better clouds generation system. The sky looks better, and that's all really nice. But you think, surely for the PS4 you could have dialed those back and made it playable for people who own a PS4, until you get to the end boss and you think, okay, this is a technical marvel.
It's like impossible to scale that down. I just
don't see how you would have scaled that down. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but just the scale of that final battle. I actually read, I think it was either a review or a tweet that I read. Somebody likened it to a God of War boss from the original games. Just so like, wow, it's so like
in terms of scale,
it's just like a larger than life. Like, oh my god, what a huge enemy!
Oh, and that's pretty cool.
I'm like, okay. If there's more of that in the third game, like I'm in by default. Like I love Horizon, but more stuff like that to me, I can see being a defining gameplay thing in the third game. Because I think Horizon Forbidden West's biggest criticism is that, it looks pretty, but it's really more of the same. They've added a means to glide. There's a couple new weapons, but the open world kind of functions the same. There's no defining gameplay change. I feel this DLC hints at what could be something big for the third game of like, no, like you're still going to fight these smaller enemies, but I don't know, the premise of the third game, there are tons of these big enemies, almost like, again, God of War style, huge scale battles that are just very unique and like cinematic.
Maybe like an open world interpretation of like a Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah,
you have these smaller enemies peppered around, but the main like objective is to take down these bigger beings or something like that.
Yeah, look, and this is obviously speculation, but I would be so down for that.
Sure.
I like to think that this DLC's last boss was them like not only flexing on, hey, we can do cool shit like this, but maybe we should sort of feel the water. What will people perceive of this sort of battle? Did they enjoy it? Should we do more of it? Even not necessarily for the third game. There's a multiplayer game coming, and I don't think I'm alone in saying Horizon crossed with Monster Hunter would be very cool.
Oh yeah, that would be the perfect sort of like meshing.
Yeah, now imagine, Monster Hunter has huge dragons and beasts that are very fun to take down alone or in co-op. Now, if the multiplayer game has bigger bosses, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
But overall, the DLC, again, like I'm not trying to hate on it. It is more of the same with some cool new enhancements. It's about 8 to 10 hours to get through the main story, which I think if you did the side content, you're probably looking at like 15 to 20 hours, which is a fair bit of content for the asking price of, I think it's $20. It's like 370 Rand locally.
Yeah.
It's either 20 or 30, but it's 370 Rand or so locally. And I think that's a fair asking price. Like
that's not bad at all for like 10 hours of gameplay.
There's a lot of content here, and the game is like, it's gorgeous. I still think Horizon is one of the best looking, if not the best looking game of this generation. That's a combination of art style, how lush the play areas look, and it's just Man,
just
I think
the sort of detail in the world is
yeah,
just insane.
I spend so much time in the photo mode.
Yeah, shocker.
It's actually a
Shocker.
problem when you're playing. Like, man, I need to like actually play the game instead of just looking at it through this damn photo.
And the
mode.
photo mode's good as well. Like, it gives you a lot to like play around with. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, it is definitely the best looking game on PS5 at the very least. I don't know. I'm just struggling to get back into it because it really expects you to have just finished the main game, because
I think that's a common problem that I've just seen in my own friendship circle of people go, I mean, myself included, they throw you in and I'm just like,
I'm spending like an hour just figuring out what the fuck's going on.
To play this game. Yeah. And is that the developer's fault? I don't know, but they could have maybe done a better job onboarding or just easing us back into this new player. Because they're quite literally like, here's a story beat. Okay, cool. You're going to fight all these enemies. And they're not.
I think it's a tough balance thing, because it's like you said, the game came out a year ago. So like, do they go, okay, well, do we patronize people and go, here's how to replay the game? And people go, how dare you? I just want to play the game. Yeah. Versus, I played this at launch. I don't know what the fuck is going on anymore. Yeah. Like I think you lose either way. So I don't know. Yeah.
That's good though.
But that said, I'm not enjoying that process. But I feel like once I've got over that hump, like it'll feel good again once the muscle memory comes back.
I must say, when I eventually got over the thing of learning what my weapons do, how, because there's a lot of statuses as well, like what each status does.
Yeah, I'm like confused as to what status effect is good against what enemy, like what I should be doing. That's the thing that I'm struggling with, because I know for a fact when I played the main game, I was like, oh, this enemy, cool, know exactly how to deal with it, know exactly how to deal. So it just feels annoying to have to relearn that again. You know what I mean?
But I mean, all that said and done, when you do have that nailed down, Horizon's combat is great. Like, it never feels, run of the mill. It's always exciting to take down an enemy. It doesn't matter how big or small they are. I feel, and it's also cinematic. Feels good. But yeah, I enjoyed my time with the DLC. I'm very excited to see what they take into the third game.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm always curious to see how. I think Guerrilla's a good studio. I just think that Horizon is not the only game in the world that is suffering from this, like, how do we make open worlds interesting again? Because everyone's doing them again. Yeah. And I just feel I wish more was done in that regard in the sequel more than anything else. I just feel its open world is a bit sterile. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe Tears of the Kingdom come out and I'll look at it and be like, cool, we're not doing that. Just like they did with Breath of the Wild. Because hey, I don't think anyone can look at it and be like, yeah, we can replicate that. Like,
it would be hilarious if in Horizon 3 they introduce like, okay, you can build your own machines now. Which might be a thing, you never know.
Wow. Now that would be dope. Like,
that would be
or
cool.
Build your own bows, build your own components of bows, and I don't know. We'll see.
We heard you loud and clear. Now you can fuse weapons in Horizon. Like, wow.
This is a dynamic new feature that we have never seen ever. Yeah.
Amazing.
Should we jump quickly over to game releases? We are looking at games releasing from today, April 29th, which I think we mostly covered last time. Yeah, there's nothing. So we are just looking at games coming out and all the way up until May 5th, which is not that many. So let's fly through these. Big one for the week for many, many reasons. Redfall coming to PC, Xbox Series X and S, May 2nd. Very keen to give that a go. Very keen to give that a go on PC because there's not a fucking chance I'm playing that on console at 30 FPS. I'm sorry. I don't want to sound all snobbish, but a first-person shooter that at 30 FPS just feels bad. No. Age of Wonders 4 coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series, May 2nd as well. Showgunners coming to PC, May 2nd. Night Crawlers, as in the night, like the
knights in shining armor.
One in armor. You're there. Thank you. You helped me get there. Coming to PC, May 4th. Kaku, Ancient Seal, Steam Early Access, PC, May 4th. Jected, like ejected, but without the E. Oh, sorry, there's more to this title. Jected - Rivals. Okay.
-
Steam Early Access.
Weird they put that in the name.
Steam Early Access PC May 4th. And then Hogwarts Legacy is finally coming out on all the consoles on PlayStation and Xbox One May 5th. It's coming out on Switch, I think, in June or July. Curious to see how those run on all the hardware because that game is hectic.
I can see it running on older hardware. I envision just longer load times, paired back
in the
visuals.
castle. How the fuck is that going to work?
I don't know.
Like, I mean, even on the SSD, there were times where I got to a door and it was like, just chill out. Just wait a bit.
My biggest question mark is the Switch. I'm like, I have no idea
how the
thing's going to run. Yeah, I don't know.
I foresee this not working super hot on these consoles. I'm thinking of a base Xbox One and a base PS4, and I just don't see how that's possible. So,
yeah,
good luck. Yeah, that's it.
Jeez,
that's three games under that is The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. My goodness.
Yeah, it's a small
bold
release.
Of Diablo to host a Diablo beta on the same weekend that Tears of the Kingdom is out. Like,
I mean, it's a beta. I've got nothing.
Good luck to you, friends.
Good luck, Godspeed.
Good luck, Godspeed. Yeah.
Cool. Shall we get to gaming news?
Gaming news. There's only one.
Yeah, I think the biggest.
There's only one piece to lead with here, and that is the very, very surprising kerfuffle that has hit the Microsoft Blizzard acquisition. So yeah, the UK blocked it. This is super not expected. I think if you spoke to any analyst on Monday, they were like, yep, the console. So a few weeks ago, the CMA, or the Consumer and Markets Authority in the UK, basically cleared up they cleared any of their concerns regarding the console side business of Xbox. And that was where all the Call of Duty stuff came in. They were like, we are happy that we think that if Microsoft acquires Activision Blizzard, they're not going to obtain a monopolistic or competitive advantage in the market to skew it their way.
Yeah.
And their concern at the time was cloud. And everyone at the time was like, oh, simple, cloud, not a big thing. It's okay. Analysts were like, the decision's going to come in this week. That's going to be approved. And in a few weeks' time, the EU is going to approve it. And that's basically going to allow Microsoft to close the deal before the July 18th deadline, even though they are fighting the American FTC in court. But, you know, if the EU and the UK are okay, the FTC will probably fold as well because they don't really have a case. Turns out the UK has big concerns over cloud gaming. And there is a bit of debate as to whether this position is like correct or not, because essentially the CMA has concerns over a market that doesn't really exist yet. They have future concerns, and they're kind of basing their decision on what they think might occur. So if you look at today, Microsoft owns 60 to 70% of the cloud gaming market. And that's primarily because competitors in the space have kind of disappeared. Google Stadia disappeared. Amazon Luna, not really there. And Microsoft was making all these deals with these cloud providers all over Europe to kind of assuage the fears that they already have a monopoly over this segment. So the CMA says that Microsoft's owning Activision Blizzard would give them even more power in the space, and that the deals that they've made are not good enough. Essentially, they are too short. They have far too much wiggle room for Microsoft to still make things exclusive. And as it turns out, when the full ruling came out, all the deals Microsoft made, they would take 100% of the profits of all of their microtransactions on those platforms, which is like, why the fuck would you do that? Like, of course, that's going to be a fucking problem. Like, you're basically being like, we gave this 10-year deal so they can have the game, but also we're taking like
all the money,
every single piece of money from that deal. Like,
but it's so interesting because just on that front, I'm like, if you're a cloud provider, you know, and you partner with Microsoft and they say we want 100% of profits, why would you agree to that? I mean,
because you're not going to get the game otherwise.
Yeah, I suppose, but it's still like
it's bizarre. I just.
But even
you know, I can see with that context in mind why the CMA did this, because they're like, we don't even have to foresee what you might do in the future. You were already doing it. Yeah. You were already like, you're already overstepping the boundary. You know, to the point where the potential for you to go even further seems very likely, and especially so when these deals are only 10 years long.
Yeah.
So yeah, where does Microsoft go from here? Well, they are very angry, as expected. There is indication, well, there's suggestions from people in the Activision Microsoft camp that the CMA met with representatives from the FTC to discuss this case, which would be highly illegal. So if they can prove that, that would be a big thing. I don't think they're going to try that. But now all they can do is appeal. Now, appeals take years, firstly, so their July 18th closing date they would definitely miss that. And based on history, the CMA wins all appeals. So the odds of them overturning this, very, very meager. There is a suggestion from some analysts that the biggest way Microsoft resolves this is that they spin off Game Pass to be its own thing in the UK that doesn't have Activision content. And that might appease the regulators in the UK.
But I mean, what happens to the FTC then?
Then the FTC becomes a bit of a more difficult case to fight in court because you don't have the pretense of like, oh, well, the UK is totally fine with that deal. It's like, no, the UK is fine with the deal because it doesn't apply to their region.
Yeah.
So this ruling complicates so much, like, because everyone assumed this was just going to go Microsoft's way. And
No, go for it. What I'm going to say.
No, I just don't know what they really do from here, because from my perspective, just understanding this from a very basic perspective, like, they can't really change their market share in the cloud space. They can't really change their strategy in the cloud space. So they have less than 2 months to try and remedy this. And depending on what the EU says, because again, everyone's saying the EU will side with Microsoft, but everyone was saying this about the fucking UK. So who the fuck knows anymore now?
Yeah.
Like, if the EU rejects this is done. Like, this is so dead in the water. There's already indications that this might be dead, because there's already like Phil Spencer going, oh, we still have a plan to, continue Xbox without the Activision Blizzard acquisition. Like,
yeah, I saw that. He basically said, like, we have a gaming strategy that will go ahead with whether we have Activision Blizzard or not. It's just so interesting because, like, again, I'm with you. I've got a very basic understanding of, the legality around an acquisition of this scale. But isn't it funny that Microsoft, in like trying to tick the box of Activision Blizzard games will be available to as many gamers as possible, like, we signing all these cloud deals, etc., but it kind of backfired.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
It absolutely did. Yeah.
Not once did it cross my mind going, oh yeah, they've got too much dominance over cloud. Like, I've obviously thought Microsoft's in a very good space in terms of cloud, but I never thought, yeah, they're dominating. This is a problem.
What would have happened if Stadia was still alive?
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. If Stadia was still in the picture, would that have changed the ruling? Because just imagine this happened 2 years prior, or even a year prior. It's like the UK are like, okay, Stadia is still like in its infancy, or it's been around for a bit, but Microsoft has competition. We'll prove the deal, and then Stadia falls away. Then Microsoft gets the monopoly anyway. But it's just funny that Stadia's gone now, and it's just like, whoa. And there's no
Microsoft's been bitten here by being so ahead of the curve in this space.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, PlayStation hasn't had time to spin this up, because they are going to get there. Like, they definitely are thinking about the space. This is the new, like, battleground for gaming, is cloud gaming. And because Microsoft just has the infrastructure and, like, foresaw this better, they got you faster, and it's actually impacted their deal negatively, because they just own most of the market, because there is no competition right now.
It's crazy.
So I think that's where some of the confusion comes in with some people when looking at this ruling, because they're like, they are looking at today as a snapshot of cloud gaming and extrapolating that over the future and thinking that no one else will get into this space. And maybe that's not accurate. I don't know. That's also where I've seen some people saying where Microsoft could fight this in a appeal is like the ruling today is based on a future that is being predicted off of like who knows what, you know what I mean?
It's interesting.
So yeah, I don't know. It's the thing that gets me is that the UK, the CMA was the same regulatory body that killed the Nvidia ARM deal, and yes, that deal was very different. That deal was, from an outside perspective, far more problematic in terms of monopoly because NVIDIA would essentially have
everything,
the lock and keys to the designs to basically all of their competitors' hardware.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a bit more clear cut that, hey, maybe we shouldn't allow this. But the CMA was the sticking point. When the CMA refused to budge on this, NVIDIA had to like pay SoftBank $2 billion in a breakup fee and just dissolve that. July 18th, if that comes and this is not closed, Microsoft owes Activision $3 billion. And then they go back to the drawing board. Then this whole process starts again.
Yikes.
If they decide to continue with it. So I think by July, we're going to have a much better idea of whether this is even going to go forward anymore. And if you had asked me a month ago, I mean, I'm pretty sure you can go back a few episodes and you can hear me say, I'm pretty sure this deal will close. Like, I'm pretty sure you can go back on most people's gaming podcasts and they were saying the same thing. I don't know anymore. I'm more on the side of this is actually done. Like this, I think this is killed now. And it's all based on a ruling that no one expected. So I don't see Microsoft appealing this in time.
Yeah.
So either they pay Activision $3 billion and they continue with the appeal, which takes another 2 years, and this thing fucking draws out for another half decade. At which point is it even worth it? Because Microsoft is spending so much time and effort and like planning for like doing a split strategy, being like, we are continuing with Xbox down this avenue, but at any point, Activision could be folded in and we need to be ready for that. They're going to be absolutely killed by Sony if they continue doing that because there's just, you can't effectively run a business like that.
No.
So, yeah.
Well,
I don't know. Weird.
I guess you'll see. But I think let's just tick this off quickly. All that said, still on Microsoft news, Microsoft Q3 2023, Windows devices and Xbox down again.
They're struggling. Yeah.
But I mean, so let's just read through this quickly. Microsoft just posted the third quarter of its 2023 fiscal financial results. The software maker made $52.9 billion in revenue and a net income of 18.3. I'm just looking for the key percentages here. Devices revenue has dropped by 30%.
Yeah.
Overall
that
gaming revenue.
Xbox, yeah.
Overall gaming revenue has declined by 4%. And then I think there is another percentage. Like all that said, the actual subscription side has gone up by 3%. I just cannot find that in this article. But
a slight increase of 3% in Xbox content and service revenue.
Yeah.
Thanks to Xbox Game Pass. It's bad. Like Microsoft is in a bad, or at least Xbox is in a bad position right now. Like despite Game Pass being fantastic value, the content is not there to drive further growth, and the content is definitely not there to drive device sales. Now, I don't know if Microsoft particularly cares about device sales when their subscriptions are still there, but I would wager right now they still want to be selling Xboxes.
Yeah.
And a 30% drop-off is gigantic.
Yeah. But I mean, the Microsoft CEO did come out and say, despite the hardware dip, we set third quarter records for monthly active users and monthly active devices. Microsoft also nearly hit $1 billion in revenue from subscriptions, which is like nothing to scoff at.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
I think it's also worth remembering that I think following COVID, a lot of the numbers that were set were unusually high. I think
that's true. So coming down from an unusually high number maybe looks worse than it is.
So you're like, oh my God, it's down 30%. But it's like, yeah, but it was really hard to begin with last year.
The problem, within that context, sure, you go, okay, maybe, year on year bad, but, their services are still going. They're still making a ton of money from that. But then you compare it to what's happening at PlayStation.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. So
that's the problem.
Also in news this week, PlayStation 5 sales top 38 million following its best year on the market.
Also, the best selling quarter of any console in existence ever.
And again, I'm not trying to downplay this, but there's also the nuance of, okay, but also stock issues are no longer a problem. Not trying to take away from PlayStation's success because it's huge.
But the thing is, the stock issues are not a problem for Xbox either, and they're losing sales. Yeah. So this like Microsoft stuff with their CEO's comments in a bubble seems okay.
Yeah.
But then you compare it to what their direct competitor is doing, and it looks bad. Like it looks really bad when PlayStation is able to say, they sold how many in the last quarter? 6.3 million. In the fourth quarter, and now 7.1 million in Q3.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
It's a lot.
There is no sugarcoating that they are killing Xbox in devices. Like they are absolutely killing them. And sure, what is Sony's services revenue? What is their subscription revenue? I can tell you now, much lower. But if they ever put out a very compelling, their Game Pass-esque PS Plus stuff is nowhere near as compelling. But like, it doesn't need to be if they've got double the amount of consoles out there selling, and they're selling, they've got exclusives selling over 10 million within a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
it's the Nintendo model. They're making money elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, if this console talk has you sleeping and you couldn't give two shits about console gaming, but you want to play your PC games on the go, surprise.
The ROG Ally. The Asus ROG Ally.
So we know we've seen this thing before. Obviously, it's been revealed. Was it like, I don't know? It's been revealed.
It's a couple of weeks ago.
And there were obviously discussions of like, okay, this thing's meant to compete with the Steam Deck. However, how much will it cost? Because the Steam Deck is a very affordable piece of mobile PC hardware. And I think a whole lot of previews went out this week. A lot of people giving this device, from what I read, a lot of love. People seem to like their time with it. But again, the big question mark, what will it cost? We've had some leaks, it seems. I don't know how accurate these are, but it looks like the starting price is $700 for the AMD Z1 Extreme. And for a lower end model, the AMD Z1, $600. How much is the Steam Deck, the top of the range one?
Top of the range.
Isn't it like $450? Oh, is it $650? Okay. So
it starts at $400.
Oh, okay.
The Steam Deck, and then I think it goes to $550 and then $650.
Okay.
Yeah. Listen, these, based on the internals here, so they're using AMD's new chips that are specifically designed for devices like these like mobile gaming devices. They seem fast. There is also a bit of, I would say, tomfoolery happening with the sort of access that people are being given to these games, where they aren't able to give metrics on the performance numbers they're seeing.
Yeah.
But they're told these things like it is double the performance of a Steam Deck. However, that's caveated with the fact that it is using double the power of a Steam Deck. It's using 30 watts as opposed to the maximum of 15 on a Steam Deck. So it kind of stands to reason that, yes, it will perform almost twice as, like, that is almost a linear comparison.
Yeah.
So like there is a lot of waiting on, reviews when this thing launches in May, because they're both launching in May. Like, how will this thing compare to a Steam Deck when it's running at 15 watts and hopefully keeping the same battery life? And when you're running it at full tilt at 30 watts, what is the battery life? Because it's all good and well if this thing fucking smokes the Switch. I mean, the Steam Deck. But if it lasts 30 minutes, that's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
So
that's also hilarious in 2023. If you have a device like, wow, look how cool this is. Hang on, let me just plug it into the wall. Which
exactly. There's already this idea that this is not even a handheld device, because I watched Linus Tech Tips, who had hands on. He's like, he played with it in his hands. It's bulky. It's not that comfortable when holding it up. But when he put his hands on the desk, he's like, this almost feels designed for this.
To be like resting.
The
desk.
ergonomics are designed for you to have your hands on the desk and it leaning a bit tilted. I'm like,
At the ripe age of 34, imagining sitting in my desk, having my arms leaning down, I just imagine the pain on my shoulders, and I say, thank you.
And looking down your neck the whole time.
On my neck.
This doesn't seem like a thing you're going to be holding above your face in bed. Well, that said, neither is a Steam Deck. That thing is not comfortable in that configuration, so I'm not going to say one is better than the other there. I do think that the price here is actually a lot better than I thought. Like $700 for the full tilt version is where this thing needs to be if it wants to compete. Yeah, because everyone was expecting $1,000.
$1,000, which that in itself is, my goodness, that is
that would kill this. That would a lot of Aya Neo devices that are Steam Deck competitors are essentially that. They come in and they're like, yes, we smoke the Steam Deck on performance, but we cost 3 times as more. So it's like, well, then fuck off. Like, who cares?
Well, one thing I've seen in discussions around the Ally is that there's an accessory that lets you hook it up to a TV. But how much does that accessory cost?
Well, I mean, the Steam Deck has the same thing. They're all just USB-C docks at the end of the day.
But it's like expensive.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Just buy a PS5 or an Xbox. If that's what you want.
Valve's one is like $100. It's hectic.
It's insane.
They're not cheap.
No.
I do think though, like this is, for all intents and purposes, just like the Steam Deck, a PC, and it's running Windows. So I think more people will be attracted to it to like plug it into a monitor and maybe use it as an actual PC as opposed to having to learn Linux. You know what I mean?
I can tell you from my point of view, is like a very layman, hey, I love my Switch, but I wouldn't say no to a mobile PC gaming device. This is more lucrative for me purely because I can play Game Pass on the go.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big boon for people.
If I can have Steam and I mean, even Epic, like if I can have Game Pass, I can claim free Epic games and I can have Steam on one device, like, man, that sounds too good to be true. These are the things battery life be good.
But the kicker there actually is going to be Asus's Armory software that is being overlaid on top of Windows that is supposed to act as a translation layer to be like, cool, all these control inputs, how do they work on Windows? Because Windows is horrendous with that sort of control, like touchscreen and controller support. Yeah. That is where I think the Steam Deck earns a lot of its praise, is because SteamOS is so beautifully integrated into Linux that, like, no matter what game you're launching, no matter what you're trying to do, there is always a control scheme to get around that. It feels like a console experience. Yeah. And, the Aya Neos have been really bad with this, and that's why they haven't really caught on. If Asus cracks the nuts of this feels like a Windows console experience, and then you have the access to all these games, but you don't have to, like, always plug in a fucking keyboard to get it working. They've got a winner on their hands, I think. But until people play around with that software, I'm very skeptical.
I was going to say, I think if you're looking to get this thing, hold out on your pre-order. Let's see what it looks
100%. Like. It's only coming to South Africa in Q3, though.
Oh, so, but I mean, so we'll at least have a better idea.
No, we'll have reviews to at least inform us by then.
I am very curious to know what the price is in South Africa now, because
oh my god, it will
$700.
If it's starting at $600, that means it's going to be over $12K. Easy.
Yeah, which like 600, 700 is very affordable overseas.
Yeah,
but.
Well, look at the consoles. The consoles are $500 each.
Yeah,
they are
$12 grand.
So you're looking at 13, 14K for this device locally.
Yeah, if this thing comes out and you're like, hey, it's 14 grand, I'm like, oof, I don't know.
That's starting. If you want the nice beefy boy, you're looking at over 15K for this, and that becomes like a no.
I don't know how many you're going to sell in our market. Why? Sorry to say. Yeah.
At least it will be cheaper overall than the Steam Deck, because we get Steam Decks now locally, but they parallel imported. And they're starting at like 16K at like retailers, and please do not buy that. Like, do not support complete highway robbery like that. That is crazy.
Can you only order the Steam Deck directly from Valve, for example? Yeah. So you can't order it from Amazon.
So there's some retailers in China and Japan that like stock it. Like Valve made deals with them because they can't do the distribution there. So I'm wondering if that's where they're coming from, because maybe someone has like a pipeline there. Yeah. But in other countries, it's all from Steam. You can't get it from a Best Buy or an Amazon.
Because I was going to say, like, generally speaking, if you order from Amazon UK, you can get well-priced deals on hardware, depending on what you order.
Definitely, yeah. Then you could import them here,
Yeah.
but you can't. Yeah, unfortunately.
My
And
goodness.
I think the reason behind that is because Valve is taking they're like eating so much shit on the hardware cost on this thing to keep it down. Like to put it on a retailer side and lose even more is like not feasible for them.
To be fair, Valve also printing money.
Also
on the
true.
software
Apparently
side.
they made $11 million on CSGO skins in one day the other day. So like,
what?
maybe money's not a deal, not a really big issue.
Yeah,
for them,
this is where I look at Asus and I'm like, yeah, you're selling hardware. Like I kind of get that you can't sell your new fancy handheld at like $500, because where else do you make up that money? You can't.
Yeah.
Valve just goes, we have a Steam summer sale and hey presto, we've made $1 billion or something. We put out a new case in a Dota 2 and hey presto, $1 billion.
It's nuts, eh? It really is crazy.
We run an international, we take 75% of the profits, only 25% go to the winners. Hey presto, we're rich again. My goodness. Gabe Newell is literally the DuckTales Scrooge McDuck diving into
he's just diving into
his
in fucking Canada, or doesn't he live in New Zealand now or something?
I don't know. Cool. Last pieces of news. Look, all that said, I do want to see what this device looks like in the wild. Let's see what it looks like when it's
I'd love to like handle one and just give it a go. I'm just, every time I talk about this device, I feel like people think I'm just shitting on it because like I have a Steam Deck. That's like not the case. I was very critical of the Steam Deck before it came out. I was like, who the fuck's going to play on Linux? How are these games going to work? This and that. Valve did all the fucking work they needed to make that thing work, and I just don't see a company like Asus doing that, considering all the desktop software I've used of theirs to make lights go red and green and how fucking crap that can be. Like, are they going to make a client that will make it seamless for me to navigate Windows? I have my doubts. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. Last pieces of news, just to touch back on Guerrilla quickly. Guerrilla subtly confirms a new Horizon game as its studio director moves on. Is anyone shocked? Anyone shocked by the fact that we're getting a third Horizon game?
I think what was interesting here was that we got confirmation that they're doing a multiplayer game, because I can't remember if that was just rumored.
If it is rumored or Listen, said it once, said it 1,000,000 times. Make it feel like Monster Hunter in the Horizon universe, and I really think you have a winner. I can see
they're doing it. It's going to be a live servicey multiplayer game set in the Horizon universe. I bet that comes out before Horizon 3. I bet that that's what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Because there was also that comment a while back where I can't remember if it was Jim Ryan or Herman Holtz basically saying that by like 2025 they're going to have like 20 live service games out, and I bet that's one of them.
That's crazy.
So yeah, I think Horizon 3 is like a end of PS5 life cycle game, like in the last year of the PS5, like as a final hurrah to it. Yeah.
And then last piece of news this week. Armored Core 6 sees From Software reboot the series for fans, Souls players, and newcomers alike.
This shit looks so good. Oh
my God. The new trailer for Armored Core 6 dropped with a release date of, it's August, right?
It's August 25th, isn't it?
Why can I not see the release date? It's
wow,
that
somewhere. I think you linked the preview.
Yeah,
my
bad.
The preview.
But it is coming in August. 25th of August.
Oh,
and
that's right.
Man, I've never played an Armored Core game before, but you best believe I'm all in here. My favorite part of this trailer is that From Software, man, their obsession with fire and cinders all the time.
Link the flame again, this time as a robot.
As a robot. I'm like, why?
I did read in this preview, though, they said there is no poison swamp. And it's like, wow.
Oh, whatever, man. There will be a poison swamp. We know that.
How can robots be poisoned? Oh, it's not going to be a poison swamp. It's going to be a corrosion swamp.
Yeah, it's going to be acid.
They're getting around it.
I was saying this in our Discord because good pal Garth wrapped up Elden Ring, and we're talking about, is it the Lake of Rats or the Scarlet Lake?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, because every From game has one of these bullshit lakes, every single one. But then in Elden Ring, when you go to Khalid, I'm like, I can just get on torrent.
Yeah, I can just torrent around here.
Like, man, you've really like slipped. You know, gone are the days of you making me suffer. And then I discovered the Lake of Rot. It's like, you assholes.
Yeah, and that place is the fucking worst.
The
It is so
actual
shit.
worst.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
I bet you there'll be one of them. Yeah.
There has
It's
to
not
be.
poison, it's corrosion.
It's corrosion.
different.
So Armored Core, if you don't know, is like, you know, From existed before Dark Souls. I think this is one of their oldest franchises, and it's all about mechs.
Do you know there's 15 games in this series?
That's crazy.
That's nuts. Yeah.
But I mean, if they've taken, because it's been a long time since they've done an Armored Core, if they've taken lessons from all their recent hits, whether it be Dark Souls, Elden Ring, or Sekiro, like I'm very keen to see what this new rendition of Armored Core looks like. Because based on the trailer, it looks like there's large-scale boss battles, there's dodging, lots of missiles and lasers, which is pretty cool, very unlike a Dark Souls. I'm very keen to see how this game shakes out. Color me
Based off
excited.
of just reading the preview, there seems to be like they're being very adamant that this is not a Souls game. So I don't think it's going to have a lot of the trappings of like upgrade currency disappears when you die or stuff like that. But I think based of what I read, the things that have come over from the Souls franchise is like an aggressiveness to the combat, because I think previous entries were a lot slower, a lot more methodical, like a traditional sim-like mech experience. This one is like, no, we want you to be up in like the action. We want you to be dodging a lot. We want you to be attacking a lot. So that speaks to me. I kind of want to play that. Yeah.
We want you to rekindle the flame once more.
To be fair, like everyone, I think most people who have tried Elden Ring are going to give this a go because like, why the fuck not, you know? And they might come to and be like, okay, Armored Core's not for me.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean From games aren't for me. It's just this specific one is not for me.
Yeah.
But I had never had the interest to try Armored Core beforehand. This is the time that I'm like, cool, I'm into it. But I won't go in being like, oh, if this is not a Souls like it's shit. It's like, no, it's just a different fucking game.
The trailer itself just looks really cool. Like,
it does, yeah. It looks sick. It looks really, really fun. But there's a lot of like talk about like building up your mech, building different components. You know, like if you have a different component on your leg that affects how you move, how you know, the speed at which you walk. Your guns have different firing rates. Your actual core determines a lot of your abilities. So I think there's a lot more customization and a lot more simulation in that sense that may or may not vibe with
just
people,
like
but
Dark
it sounds
Souls,
cool.
you put a summon sign on the floor and you can get your mech friends to join. I don't know if that's the thing.
It just fucking like a Titanfall parachutes in essentially.
Yeah. I mean, August isn't too far. It's a few short months. So yeah, let's see what it's like. But on that note, that is gaming news for this week.
Do you know what happens when that comes out? The marketing cycle for Elden Ring DLC starts.
Oh boy. Next year. Let's go.
Because Miyazaki's not directing Armored Core, so he's full steam ahead on that.
He's working his butt off on the Elden Ring DLC. I can't wait.
Apparently, I read an article this week that suggested that DLC's been in development for over a year already.
I can believe that.
Like, is it releasing next year? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely next year. Someone said this year still, and I'm like,
no, I don't think it's this year.
I'm not going to get my hopes up on that, but yeah. Could you imagine getting to the end of the year and having to decide between Tears of the Kingdom and Elden Ring DLC?
But then you'll get that conversation of like, you can't give Game of the Year to DLC.
Of course I fucking
can. And then you say, okay,
award.
I'm not going to give it to Elden Ring's DLC, but I'll give it to Resident Evil 4 remake. But it's a remake. Oh, whatever.
Oh, you can't give it to Zelda because actually that's just like, it should have been DLC.
It should have been an added DLC, yeah.
Fucking nonsense. How about you just enjoy the games?
Also, it's our podcast. I can award. Yeah. I'm giving my Game of the Year to Marvel Snap again because it's too good.
Come at me, bro. Deal with it. Oh, the game's early in Steam Early Access? Deal with it.
Whatever, man. Whatever.
Can I buy it? Can I play it? Deal with it. Yeah.
Deal with it.
I hate those arguments anyway.
Sweet.
Moving on to questions, but I don't think we have any.
People hate us. No questions this week.
Well, it's because we told them to fuck off.
I never did. You must have.
No questions this week, which is fine. we'll give you a pass this week. But if you do want to send us questions, you can email us checkpointchatpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on all of our social channels at Checkpoint Chat. So that brings us to the end of this episode.
Yeah, wait, just a reminder that you can give us questions on Spotify as well. Like every week now,
that too.
I'm putting a question thing there. So if you do listen to Spotify, or if you do listen to us on Spotify, you can just pop us a question. While you're listening, say, man, why do you guys drop so many F-bombs? We'll answer that next week with pleasure.
Yeah, do that. Just don't do it while you're driving.
No.
Maybe. Yeah. If you're listening in the car, don't pick up your phone while you are going 120 down the highway and try and type.
You can pull over and send us a message.
You can definitely pull
at
over.
Your own discretion.
If you're going to do it, pull over. Yeah, absolutely. I actually advise pulling over and sending us a question. Yeah.
Nice. Cool.
But that is episode 222 of Checkpoint Chat. As always, we hope you have a fabulous week. Thank you so much for listening and supporting. Mm-hmm. And we will be back next week with I don't think we would have played Zelda by then, but one can dream.
One could only dream. I mean,
one can dream. I bet reviews are out.
Reviews are probably out.
Almost certain.
Nintendo is
last time they were out a week before launch. So
Nintendo is also surprisingly good at with their bigger releases giving people access weeks in advance. So
God bless whoever the hell is reviewing a game gigantic like that.
Surely the preview coverage we saw, is that not based on, hey, here's the code, just preview can go live on this date, just talk about the first 5 hours of the game, whatever it is?
Yep. That's exactly what happened last time.
My goodness. Okay.
Well, I mean, it didn't happen with us, but I know for a fact that the review copy for that was sent out a month in advance.
That's a big game. So
to be fair, though, the preview coverage that came out a while back was at an event in New York. So
that there were more previews this week, though, right? No.
But it could be that they have code, but they flew people to an event in New York to slice out a portion of it. Put it this way, I think reviews are definitely out this week, and I definitely think people have had it for a very long time. Nintendo doesn't fuck around with that. So yeah. Or maybe they do because they're scared of leaks. Who knows? I don't know.
This is Zelda, for goodness sake.
Yeah, this is Zelda, yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back probably not with Zelda next week, but with other games, more Advanced Wars, maybe Star Wars Jedi Survivor if Matthew doesn't have any willpower. We'll see.
It's very difficult to say no to getting that game.
I mean, you can buy it on PS5 right now.
I know I can.
You have the credit facilities. I
have the resources.
You have the facilities, fam.
I do, but also no photo mode and performance is bad. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, the performance seems, at least not PC, because PC seems bad. PC seems real bad.
Yeah.
So yeah. We'll be back next week with games either way. We hope you have a delightful week. And as always, goodbye.
Goodbye.